We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke Britton Financial Partners. This is going to be a short one today, Ben.
Just a nice little brief sort of maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
We do ramble a bit, so could go longer.
But so in the theme of people understanding what we do and what to expect when they come in to see a financial advisor, we've probably done a poor job in the past of explaining to people what to expect, what the outcomes of coming to see a financial advisor might be. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts, the granular of from finding us on the website to sitting down with a planner, what to expect. So you've got, you know what's coming.
I think I found myself in the meeting at the outset sort of doing this a little bit, which again, sometimes that's too late. Sometimes I've been trying to, if I know someone's coming in, say, look, here's a few things to think about in the lead up. So there's obviously the data side of things, but then there's a bit of a mindset I like people to come in with, and some things maybe they've just been, in the back of their head just to bring forward and be ready to explore a bit more too. So I suppose stepping back a little bit, we've jumped on the website, you've called the office, and you've probably booked in. The initial step is
Can I just pause there? I know we're going to sidetrack, but maybe let's touch on all the ways that people generally find us. So you touched on a couple there. Yeah.
Right. So sometimes Google, people just chucked in financial planner, Google, come through to us. Thank you to our clients for all those reviews, which have pulled us to the top, which is handy.
Yep.
Facebook, Instagram,
advisor ratings.
So all of those sort of website leads. And then we have just the general, the friend who's a client already, or family member who's a client already.
They might have heard us on the podcast.
They might have hit pretty viral. So
yeah.
Again, any of those other connections, most of those feedback through to either a call to the office, or if you jump on the website, you book in in the diary what we call sort of our initial consultation, sort of a pre-meeting almost, where we go through and we're basically looking just to do a very quick sort of 15, 20-minute conversation with one of the advisors or one of the associate advisors, just to get an idea of, have you found the right place initially. So for some people...
It's like a financial health check, like a quick financial health check.
Yeah, and it's very brief. And the main point of that's just making sure that you weren't looking for someone to do your tax return, because that's not us, or someone to rewrite your home loan, because that's not us. Again, often it spills into many other things that mean you have found the right place, but sometimes they're the questions that people call with. That meeting, we really do a high-level run-through of your situation. So first of all, how you found us, again, finding that, why you were looking for some advice, and then a run-through of income, assets, liabilities at a very high-level point of view, just to make sure that you can understand, we can understand that you're definitely in the realm of warranting a formal meeting with an advisor.
If someone didn't know their why, but they could have had a sense that they needed to see someone, should they not come and see us, or can we help them with actually determining what the why or what their objectives are?
More often not, the why is, we just felt like it was the time, which that's not really an unpack. Like, we unpack that and you go, okay, so that is that you're actually bubbling away in your mind is, we're a little bit worried about our debt or our cash flow, or we haven't really done anything for retirement, or we want to take a year off and travel. Like that's the why. I think we're pretty good at unpacking that. And sometimes people haven't even had that trigger. It's just a slow build in the back of their mind that comes to the point where they think, we need to get some help here. So, and that's probably more so once you've had that pre-positioning sort of initial consultation, and we'll start to collect, we'll send out the checklist and maybe a budget planner and some things like that. But what I think people need to really have in their head coming into that formal meeting is, like, why am I coming in, and what do I want to achieve out of that? And if you think about that leading in, we'll help you unpack that. So a lot of the time in that meeting, especially in the early phases, for me, I find is really drilling down on not what you've got and what you're thinking you might need, is saying, well, look, why are you here and what would you like to achieve out of this? And then we can help you build some goals and build some, something to aspire towards.
So just to recap, I don't know whether we maybe skipped a step there, but we have the 15-minute phone call or thereabouts to sort of a bit of a pulse check, financial health check, see whether you're in the right place, what your needs might be, whether you've got goals, objectives, why, a bit of a summary of where you're at. Then you have a meeting made with a financial advisor, and we allow some time. We allow how long? A couple of hours?
So at least allow 2 hours for that meeting. Plus, I always say there's a fair bit more time goes into it, because the more docs you can provide to us in advance, then I'll happily read through everything you send me in advance. So then even again, we're more well placed to get the most out of those 2 hours. Now, we charge $350 for that 2 hour allocation, plus any of the time before it that we do a bit of prep work, and any time put into a quote and a summary email following that meeting as well. So there is a lot more than just the 2 hours, but we just charge that flat rate for that initial interaction with us. For some people, and again jumping ahead a little bit, it's actually all they needed for that point in time. I haven't had anyone say that it wasn't of value to them, which is great. And then sometimes it might be about then coming back in 6 or 12 months for another sort of secondary introduction meeting to go, right, you've ticked off a couple of things yourself. Now we're into that next phase of maybe a more formal quote for some structural planning ideas. But again, jumping ahead a little bit there, I suppose going back into the meeting, what do you like to see people coming in, or what do you like to hear from them and know that they've had a thought about in advance?
Yeah, so anyone that is unsure what they should bring in, we'll send them a checklist of the information that they can bring in. So if you think, what am I supposed to bring in? What the things that are important, sort of the data-driven stuff. So income, objective data like income, assets, liabilities, insurances. Pretty boring stuff, but that forms the basis for us as from a financial planning point of view. But I suppose the important stuff is that people think about what they want from a lifestyle point of view. How many times have we said that sort of financial planning is not really financial planning, it's life planning? And so the hard part for most people is trying to quantify what they want out of life. So what are those milestones, the objectives they have, and then try to put sort of a dollar figure around them, if you like. And so it's our job is to try and gather together the financial and lifestyle objectives together with the data that they bring us, and put that into some sort of coherent plan that they walk away saying that's exactly what we wanted. So the more people can think about what the future holds for them, both short, medium and long term, the better. If you're not sure, that doesn't matter, because we'll help you flesh that out. And the more information, as you said, that you can provide in advance of the meeting, we'll review every bit that you send through to us, because it helps us build that picture of where you are and potentially where you need to go.
I think the most common, or one of the most common reasons when people book in, they will say, oh, why are we looking to book a meeting? And they'll say, oh, thinking about buying an investment property. That is not, it might be why they did book the meeting in the initial instance, but that's not really why they're there, is it? Like, they're there because if they're motivated to buy an investment property, they're probably more likely thinking about wealth generation for them in the future, to generate maybe some cash flow. Yeah,
so what would you ask them if they said that? What's the first thing you ask them?
I just always ask why.
Why?
And normally if we get to the third or fourth why, we've unpacked a fair bit already. And I suppose that's where we try not to go in there with I go in there so open-minded about every potential opportunity, and not very often do you spend too long specifically on that why early on. That's where we get a good picture of everything. Then you work backwards, and sometimes that is their best. That actually, in the end, them wanting to buy an investment property might actually form part of the strategy, but it might not be the first thing they need to do. It's often maybe step 3, 4, 5 in that process. But it's an outcome. It's a part of the strategy to produce what we're trying to achieve. It's not the starting point. I think when you put that around the wrong way and you go, our goal is to buy an investment property, then you start to you're putting the cart before the horse. Like, you've got to go, okay, why would you do that? How would you do that? What are all the implications of doing that? Is it worth it?
Yeah.
And what's your long-term play? So sometimes people are buying them, it's the wrong phase of life. That maybe, they're about to start a family and they know they're going to have an income drop, or maybe they're getting close to retirement and buying a property is not the best, income producing asset. Again,
and
all these reasons.
People are generally not very good at looking up and out at the future. They're very good at looking inwardly at their own situation. But sometimes you need like an external third party to say, hey, don't forget that this is what's going to happen if you borrow today and you've got no income in 2 years' time. This is the impact on your cash flow. Have you considered this? So I think that value of having someone that's unemotionally involved with your situation, giving you some guidance and direction, is super important. I've said that 8,000 times on the podcast, but righto, so let's go back through the process. So someone finds us in whatever way they do. They come, they have a conversation with us. bit of a financial health check. They make a time, they sit down with an advisor, we gather together the information that they've got, we have a conversation for a couple of hours and determine whether or not they've got everything under control, whether they're not quite ready for advice. If they are ready for advice, or they think there's some planning opportunities there for them, what's the next step? You mentioned it briefly about giving them a proposal or a summary of what we've talked about.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty consistent across all of us, have a very similar process here, but for me it's, post that meeting, we'll just dot points and maybe there's the high, just at a high level, the main topics of conversation, and some of maybe their main goals, and then put that into a nice summary that we can always refer back to, and then provide them the formal quote that goes with that. So entering into that plan, so there's a design phase of what that might look like. If we were to then present that and implement, what the implementation side of it looks like, and then if we deem appropriate, what it would cost to have a maintenance plan with us for us to continue to sit with them and roll through their financial journey ongoing. Now, again, that's a 12-month contract that we renew every year. For most of our clients, it becomes a lifetime sort of association that they have with us, which is something we really like doing because we can continue to roll through. And it's quite amazing when you look back on what that initial, why they booked a meeting, to some of those clients now, the 7 or 8 years down the track, and you'd almost laugh if you looked at that they would laugh if they looked back on why they thought they were coming in versus where we're at now with all the things they're doing, or maybe all the things they're not doing from a work perspective, and they're living much more comfortably with passive income than they thought they were going to be.
Yep. So for anyone who's listening to this thinking, how do I work out whether this is of value to me? How do you answer that question for them when someone's thinking, is it worthwhile going through this process? There's going to be a cost at some point, whether it's the initial meeting with an advisor to have a couple of hours, or maybe to engage a financial advisor both initially and ongoing. What's the value of advice?
Good question. I think there's the tangible value of it, and then there's the intangible value. So when we say tangible, it's, we can quantify, maybe tax savings or investment savings or fund platform expenses, or there's all of those. But I believe, without any doubt, that the intangible value is actually more. For me, it's the bigger part that people get, and that's having conversations, making collective decisions, setting goals, objectives, and again, they do in turn have tangible outcomes, but it's very hard to put a dollar figure on those. But if we can tie all that together and capture it and make sure that all of your different components of your financial situation are working together, then the value is there. And I suppose from our perspective is, and we will very openly say this, some people just aren't in a position where they've got the capacity to fund it and that it be of worthwhile expense to them. And I suppose working through that process from the pre-positioning through to the initial consultation, we might, and I've done this so many times, they've got value out of that time spent and the money spent, but I've been able to give them 4 or 5 things to go away and go, you nail all of these and you hit these few sort of little internal markers, and then we're good to go with some more formal planning where we can start to, where the expense of engaging at a more structured level will be of worthwhile to you. Like for us, it's not about every person coming in going straight through to that quoting stage. Sometimes that can be an 18-month process. Sometimes it's an 8-week process. It depends. But we'll help you step through that. And us have contagious coughs. Again, we'll work with you to make sure you understand those value pieces. So don't, again, coming into the process, be open-minded, but be skeptical as well. Like, pull us apart, ask a million questions. I don't know how many times, and probably anyone who's had an initial meeting with me will say, how many times do I say, any more questions on that, anything at all? If you think of something, just jump in at any point, because we want to answer every single question we can.
Yeah, and I think we'd like to think that the process we have is very thorough. It's thorough in actually understanding our clients, their needs and their potential and the benefit of advice. But we also recognise that process in a world where people like to get things done tomorrow, we're working in sort of in conflict with the new world of getting things done overnight.
I think people actually appreciate the fact that for us, it's not about slamming on the brakes, but it's just sometimes just taking the foot off the accelerator a little bit and really assessing what's going on around and making really considered decisions, because you're making decisions that might change what happens over the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. Not often making a decision within a half hour or 2 hour period is going to be the best way to do that. You need to assess all the options. That's where we go to work on research and looking at all the options out there, working with you around what you'd be comfortable with to formulate really personalised, professional advice.
Yeah, and you mentioned before that it's sometimes there's lots of things that we can quantify. You can quantify tax saving. You can quantify, you can estimate growth. You can quantify, contributions to super. But those less tangible things, one of the things we know for sure, probably the only thing we can be certain about is uncertainty. Uncertainty in markets, uncertainty in life. And a lot of what we do as financial advisors is prepare people to deal with those surprises in life, whether it be death or illness or market volatility or a change in your work circumstances or your income or your cash flow. Because those things are hard to predict and it's very hard to quantify those in dollar terms. But having people in your corner that can actually help work you through those situations is, I think, and we're biased, aren't we? So we say that up front. We're biased. This is what we do for a living. But there's a reason why we have hundreds of clients and family groups that actually come to us and allow us to help manage their family affairs.
Yeah, and we could talk about this all day. I suppose one of those things is when we set that plan in place and we've done all the fundamental work on it, when something changes, especially from a market perspective, I reflect back on maybe like the COVID downturn or something like that, client calls, naturally they're going to be a little bit concerned about what's happening in the world. We go right back through all the initial interactions. We work back through their situation, back through what we set in place, what we put in place to make sure that we not only could survive a downturn in the market, but maybe even make some money out of it. Step back through it. Often we didn't actually have to do anything. We actually just had to, from a strategy point of view, we didn't have to change tack. We just had to remind ourselves of why we were doing what we were doing, and the relief that you can sense on the other end of the phone or the Zoom through that period. That's sort of often why we do this job, because you can put people's mind at rest or at ease about those things. And that's comforting for us as well as them. Yeah, it's super comforting, and that's a really good example. We had a client just walk in before we hit record, and I was just talking to that client about the value. He was talking about the sort of the tangibles and intangibles, and he said that the fact that he now works because he chooses to, not because he has to, is the value that he was after. Like it's given him lifestyle freedom. And I said, if I could bottle the way he feels and explain to other people, that's our aim. We're aiming to get people to the point where they've got financial and lifestyle freedom. We've done our job and we'll continue to do that. So that's probably more than we planned. We said it was going to be quick. It's under 20 minutes. That's quick for us. Pretty good.
Anything else we need to cover off on, Ben?
No, otherwise we just go down another tangent. We'll do that next week.
Okay, great. Thanks, mate. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to, don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PP Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS, licence number 232706.